Hello everybody, Miss Collin here. We're going to be talking about midpoint today. So it's important to first understand what a midpoint is and where it comes from, and then when we use the actual formula for midpoint, because a lot of times we can just count midpoint. So for example, down here in number 1, you'll see I drew a segment here from 0 to 4. Now some of us may just note that the center is 2, but we can also estimate it and see and just count 1, 2 up and 1, 2 down, and see that the middle of the line is at 2. So our midpoint would be wherever this is. So this looks like it's negative 3.5, comma 2. Okay, so but when we have a diagonal, kind of like what happened to us with the Pythagorean theorem, we can't just count, right? We don't have an even count. We can estimate, but we need an exact number. So we come up with this formula. Now this formula comes from somewhere. I don't want you to just memorize it. It's a lot easier if you understand what the midpoint formula means and where it comes from. So my best example for you guys is going backwards, of course, and if I have 3 numbers, let's say, this goes back to middle school probably, if you're given 36 and 45, and I tell you to find the number between them, how would you do so? Pause for a second and think. Well, Miss Collin, we'd add them and then divide by 2. Oh my gosh, exactly. Awesome job, guys. You would add them and then you divide them by 2 to find the number in between them, right? This is also called the average of the numbers. If we add 2 things and divide them by 2, we're finding the average. Okay, so the middle number here would be 40.5. All right, same thing if I said, find me the number, the middle number. What is the number exactly between 45 and 74? Well, in order to find that would be a long time counting on a number line, right? So instead, we're going to add them, and then we're going to divide by 2, and that will give us the exact number between them. Okay? So that would give us the middle number doing this. All right, well, it's kind of the same thing with midpoint, except with midpoint, you have coordinates. So you're given an x and a y, and then another x and a y. Don't let these little 1s and little 2s confuse you. Remember, that's just math notation saying that this is one of our x's, and then this is the second one of our x's. This is one of our y's, and this is the second one of our y's. They're not the same number. Okay? So in order to find, when we come down here, we want to know, if we want to know the middle number, we want to know the middle of our x's here, right? We're going to say, okay, well, what's the middle of our x's? And then what's the middle of our y's to find this exact middle point? So we're going to do the same thing we went through here. We're going to add our x's and divide it by 2 to find the middle of our x's. And then we're going to add our y's and divide it by 2 to find the middle of our y's. So think of it as that. You're finding the middle of your x's and middle number of y's. Okay, so don't think of it so much as a formula. Just say, okay, what is going to be the middle of my x's? What is going to be the middle of my y's? And to do so, we're going to follow the same process. Okay, so if you are given some coordinates, now here I asked you guys to read the graph. Remember, x comes first and then y. So an example here, our coordinates are -2, 1, and 4, 3. And I tell you, find the midpoint. So we're going to do exactly what I said, okay? Now, first things first, I highlighted my x's because I know I'm going to add those together, and then I highlighted my y's to make sure that I keep those together, okay? So I'm going to add my x, -2 plus 4, and then divide it by 2. Now you'll notice I first wrote -2 plus 4, because if you don't add first, if you don't do order of operations in your calculator, it'll come out wrong. So make sure you add these two. I put them in parentheses in my calculator So if I want to put it all in at once, you got to do those in parentheses and then divide by 2. Otherwise, your calculator will first do -2 divided by 2 and then try to add 4. And that will not give you the right answer. Okay, so be careful there. Make sure you're adding and then dividing. All right, so when we do so, -2, 4, this is really 4 minus 2. So 2 divided by 2 is just 1. And then 1 plus 3 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. And did Miss Collin make a mistake? She did not make a mistake. Good. Okay. Oh. Right, so 1, 2 is my midpoint. It is an ordered pair, which means it has an x and a y. It should not just be one number. It should be an ordered pair, and you should have parentheses. Okay, come here. You're going to do the same thing. Find those points. So this one's a little tricky because it is a -1.5, right? It's between -1 and 2. So it's -1.54, and it is also 3, -2. So I'm going to highlight my x values, -1.5 and 3, and my y values 4 and -2. And then I'm going to come down here, I'm going to add my x's, -1.5 plus 3. Here, before I even write it as a whole, I'm going to just add those first. I get 1.5, and then I know in my calculator, just so I don't mess it up, I'm going to divide that by 2. And 4 plus -2, that's the same thing as 4 minus 2, so I have 2. And I'm going to divide that by 2. Okay, so if you want to do the sum first, go ahead. Otherwise, you can plug this whole thing into your calculator. All right, so for my x value, 1.5 divided by 2 gives me 0.75, or 3/4, comma, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, so that is my midpoint. It is okay to have a fraction. All right, coming down here, it says find the midpoint between 2 points. It doesn't give you the graph, which is fine because we can't count it anyways. Okay, so I'm going to come through here. I'm going to highlight my x's that I know I'm going to add together and my y's. Right? I'm going to set those equations up. I'm going to be adding -1 plus 7 and dividing that by 2, and then I'm going to be also adding -2 plus 4 and dividing that by 2 to get my x's and my y's. Okay, so this will be my x value, this will be my y value. Take a minute, solve for that, and what do we get? Well, we get 6 divided by 2 here. 7 minus 1 is 6 divided by 2. And then we get 4 minus 2 is 2 divided by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3 for my x and 1 for my y. Does it matter if x comes first and then y? Yes. Okay, so your answer needs to be in the yellow and then the pink if we're talking about color-wise, how I'm color coding it here, okay? X's and then Y's. There's really a big parentheses around both of these and a little comma, right? That's how we're finding it. And we're keeping it in there the same way, okay? So you should be able to do this last one here. I want to see that you can do this. Please come in with your work and the answer for this to get full credit. Thanks so much and have a great day.